Welcome back to Hike, Heal, and Hustle, where we move our bodies, nurture our minds, and build lives that align with our vision. I'm your host, Randy Black, and today we're talking about something we don't celebrate enough: stillness. This episode, this episode is entitled "Permission to Pause: The Power of Sacred Stillness." We live in a culture that glorifies movement, hustle culture, the grind, sleep when you're dead mentality. Even on social media, the posts that get shared are all about chasing, achieving, and crossing that next finish line. But here's the truth: pause is power too. Stillness is not laziness, it's an essential part of our growth, physically, mentally, and spiritually. If you've been running on empty lately, today's episode is your invitation to slow down. When I think about slowing down and getting your permission to pause, I am reminded of when my children were very young. I remember this friend, I don't know if I looked tired, I don't remember what led her to say this. She was married, she had 2 kids. She said, when you put the girls down to sleep at night, just run yourself a really hot bath with a bubble bath. Light some candles and take a hot bath while you're listening to jazz. And I would get just a few minutes to kind of just unwind from the day. What's funny about that is I would wait, like watching the girls when they were babies, to make sure that they were good and sleep. And inevitably, the water would fill up in the tub, bubbles ready, candles lit, jazz playing. And I promise you, there were days where my foot would literally hit the tub and one of the girls would come bursting into the bathroom. I didn't even get a chance to get in, and one of them would get up and come into the bathroom. I honestly think that they knew what I was doing and were just waiting. I was like, okay, I think she's ready to get in. Here's our chance. Talking about needing a pause and being alone. And back when they were really little, preschool, toddler, baby age, I lived with my sibling. And so when the girls were asleep, I would use that time at night to go do my shopping while my sibling was there watching all 3 kids while they were all asleep. I would either go late at night when I knew they were down or really early in the morning. Back then, Walmart, Kroger, they were open 24 hours, so you can go at any time. I would take advantage of that. And I would still get up early and get ready for work and get them ready for daycare. So I was running on very little sleep for the first few years of their lives. Now let's talk about the first pillar: hike and restorative hiking and walking meditations. We start with movement, but I'm not talking about the kind of movement that leaves you breathless. I am talking about restorative hiking. In those hikes where you're not rushing, you're not counting the steps, you're not racing to the summit. Instead, you're noticing the way the light filters through the trees, or how your breath starts to match the rhythm of your feet. I mean, that's a walking meditation, movement that restores instead of depletes. Now, for me, most, if not all, of my hikes would be considered restorative hikes. When I go into the North Georgia mountains to do a hike, a good many of those hikes don't even have cell service. So I'm not texting, responding to text, anything. I can't. I don't even try to find music or anything that's downloaded to my phone. I just enjoy the time where there is no phone and relatively no time limit. And I'll stop, I look at the flowers and the trees. When I was at Helton Creek, and sat on a rock, and I just wanted to feel the sun on my face. I put my feet in the icy cold water from the waterfall. It was one of the most productive, unproductive things that I've ever done. And it reminds me that we're human beings, not human doing. So when you slow your pace on the trail, you open up space to hear your own thoughts, or sometimes the quiet that you didn't even know you needed. And then sometimes you're just listening. That's one of my favorite things to do when I'm hiking or I'm on a trail. That's one of the reasons why I do scenic hikes. Even when I'm in the suburbs, if I can find a hike that is near a body of water, I'll just stop and listen to the running water, the creek. I'll listen to the waterfall, the leaves rustling, the birds chirping. I like listening to all of that. I enjoy that quiet sound of nature. Some of us don't know how to pause. And I'm not even trying to point fingers, because I was one of those people. Because we've been conditioned to believe that our worth is tied to our output. That if we're not constantly doing, we're falling behind. And I would say I grew up that way. We were not allowed to just sit and be. If my siblings and I were home alone, just chilling in the living room, and my mother and stepfather came home, they would walk through the door into an already clean home, and they would look for something for us to do. I remember several times when the house was just immaculate, and my stepfather, he just couldn't find anything to yell at us about. So he would say, vacuum the living room again, because I can't see the lines in the carpet from the last vacuum. Not that it wasn't clean, it's just keeping us from just sitting, pausing, and being. And so that's how I grew up. And unfortunately, I carried this mindset into adulthood. Like, I feel guilty when my day isn't fully stacked of duties. I used to. Sometimes I still do. I ain't trying to make it seem like I've mastered this yet. I remember recently, I'm talking about last week, that I was scheduling when to take out the trash because I was doing other stuff. And so I got really anxious. I was like, oh my God. I didn't want to stop what I was doing to take out the trash. I was looking at the time and I was like, okay, I'm going to take it out at this time. It was closer to the evening. And the closer it got to that time and I wasn't quite finished what I was doing, the more anxious I got. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to finish this in time. And it was just my mindset. No one put me on this schedule. I had to really sit and think about that. And it was unsettling to realize what I was doing. And I had to snap myself back into reality and say, this is not that big of a deal. The trash bin is in the garage and trash pickup day is 3 days away. Some bad habits are harder to break than others. I couldn't even give myself permission that day to pause. I was already busy. I wanted to make sure that my day felt productive. And this mindset that I used to have from childhood all the way through adulthood, of feeling worthy of rest when I couldn't keep my eyes open. That's the only time I was like, okay, I'm still wide awake. I can be doing something. That was my mindset. And sometimes it still is. I do rest more. I can promise you that. But there are days when I will literally say, well, I'm not sleepy yet, so let me do something else. I want to say this clearly for those of you who have similar backgrounds. Your value does not disappear when you rest. For me, learning to pause meant breaking some deep habits. Here's another one. I had to unlearn the guilt of not answering text messages right away, of letting the laundry wait until tomorrow, or saying no to volunteer opportunities when my soul needed quiet. And like I said, this was a challenge. When I was raising my girls, I functioned on very little sleep. I was working full time. I would leave work. I would pick the children up from daycare, go home, cook, and while the girls ate, I would begin cleaning the task, whatever it was. And one day, after I made dinner, my daughters was set that they were sitting. They had this cute little character table, and they were sitting at the table because I had prepared and set the table for their dinner. And I was ready to get right back into the next thing, whatever that task was, whatever cleaning task that I was supposed to do that day. And my youngest, out of nowhere, says in her squeaky little preschool voice, "Mommy, sit down and eat." And she had her little hand, tiny hand, placed on the spot for me to join them. Until that point, I had never considered what watching me continue to go was doing to them. I also had not considered or even thought that eating with them was more important than doing the laundry, cleaning, or whatever tasks that I needed to complete that day. That innocent gesture changed how we ate meals. And from that day forward, I decided that dinner was a time for all of us to pause. Now, full transparency, once they reached high school, it was way more difficult to have meals together, but we all made an effort, and my girls are in their 20s now, and we still do. We make an effort to sit and have dinner together a couple of times a month. Sometimes pause looks like a nap. Sometimes it's turning your phone off for the weekend. Sometimes it's saying, "I'm not available right now," without explanations. The truth is, when we allow ourselves sacred stillness, we make room for healing. Rest isn't an absence of productivity. It's the soil where our best ideas, our deepest clarities, and our truest energy grow. Hustle culture. Woo, woo, woo. It can be relentless, especially when you're building something you care about. But if you're not careful, the thing you love can burn you out faster than the 9 to 5 you walked away from. As someone who is currently filling their plate with working outside the home, podcasting, creating a brand, and starting a bookkeeping business, I understand all too well how hustle culture can lead to burnout. This is why I believe in designing rest into my business model. So that means scheduling some real downtime between projects and blocking off CEO days for vision work instead of constant execution. Settling communication boundaries so people know that I won't reply immediately, and creating passive income streams so every dollar isn't tied to my physical labor. Your best hustle will always come from a well-rested, well-nourished you. And I'm sure we all heard the saying before, you can't pour from an empty cup, and your business will reflect the energy you bring to it. So let's get into our affirmation as we wind down this episode. As usual, we're going to inhale, we're going to hold it for as long as you feel comfortable, and then exhale, and then we're going to repeat the affirmation. So let's start by taking a deep breath with me. Stillness is not laziness. It's a sacred part of my growth. Stillness is not laziness. It's a sacred part of my growth. Stillness is not laziness. It's a sacred part of my growth. So I've added something this time and may do it again. We'll see. Let's do a journal prompt. I'm learning journaling. I've used to have a journal way back in the day. And doing this podcast and adding journal prompts made me want to start journaling again. So if you're a journal girly or guy, I don't even know if they call it themselves that, grab your journal and write, where do I need to rest more deeply? And let your pen move without judgment. The answer might surprise you. So, in closing, if this episode spoke to you, I want you to actually practice what we talked about. Before you scroll, before you jump to the next thing, take 5 minutes to the day and just be still. Breathe, listen, let your body and mind catch up with your soul. And if you want more conversations like this, subscribe to Hike, Heal, and Hustle wherever you listen to podcasts, and join the Vision Circle where we stay focused on our vision board goals. Share this episode with someone who needs the reminder that rest is powerful. Until next time, take the hike, make the time to heal, and always hustle with intention.